Shalom, shalom. This is your brother Kadar Bun, Mississippi Gulf Coast. I'd like to start by giving all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai. Double honors are given unto the apostle, elders of Great Millstone, men who have labored and suffered in this truth for over 30 plus years, making their lives and their bodies a living sacrifice. I also like to send a shalom to the hopefully elect, 1/3 of the nation of Israel, the speckled bird that is scattered throughout the four winds of planet Earth, north, south, east, and west. I also like to send a shalom to the various GMS camps, heads of those camps, elders, and also last but not least, I'd like to send a shalom to any of these Akim, so like to any of you Akim that are out on the highways and hedges, bringing forth this 100% truth, walking in one body, one spirit, in Yahweh Shai. To you all, shalom. Real quick, Lord willing, this be edified. I'm not going to sit here and say it's going to be quick. The Lord willing to be to the point, but and Lord willing to be edified. But having said that, we see the change in the weather in the air day to day. As a spiritual weatherman for the Lord Yahweh, Bashem Yahweh Shai. The prophets, starting with the apostle, elders, on down to brothers such as myself. Lord willing, we are those men. We are paying attention to the every little bits of here and there that's changing about, that's going on with rather with Russia and China. Now it's talking about Japan and South Korea, dealing with North Korea. All of these things are coming to the forefront. And although America, or rather Babylon the Great, a.k.a. America, is throwing out reality shows, distraction after distraction, what it is, Super Bowl, Mardi Gras, and the list goes on and on, Although she's throwing out distraction after distraction, she is having to show you, and when I say you, I mean by and large, the American public, the things that are happening worldwide, the arguments that they're ensued in, they're embedded in, the little proxy wars and the rumors of the wars, But as she do so, when I say she, America, as she do so, as she lets you in on what's going on as concerning her heads of states, they're propaganding everything to favor the agenda of America. And, I dare to say righteously so, a wicked righteously, but righteously so. America's not going to tell you the truth about all the little swindles and backhand deals and, backstabbing deals that they've done to their allies. But if you pay attention to their so-called allies, a.k.a. friends, you'll see that there's some crack in there. There's a crack. There's a split. And I'm going to keep blowing this horn, that America's allies are not on board with what's going on. And that's scripture, That's scripture. They're going to all turn on this place. Eventually that's going to be the end all be all. This place, all their friends, so-called friends that they've messed over the 2+ centuries that they've been 2.5 centuries that this place has been up and running as a country, as a corporation. They've screwed over all of their business partners. And their playbook, they done got, that playbook, that same old playbook that they run to, and, it done played out for the most part, Only people who still stand to be fooled at this point are the public by and large. And I'm talking about you Americans, mainly 2/3 of our people, you so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans. But, I'm just setting the subject matter. I want to show through a series of videos, and these videos that I'm going to be playing, these are on any of your news providers, Salakia. They are on any of your cable providers. You know, this is nothing new. This is not, you know, because I don't want to get no strike, no copyright infringement, or none of the above. I'm using news clips that you can go on to MSNBC, Fox News, CNN, C-SPAN. You understand? This is just for educational purposes, point blank, period. I gain nothing from this. No type of monetary, nothing. No finances, nothing whatsoever. Just a point that's being proved. And, you know, and by the Fair Use Act, you're allowed to do so. You know, having said that, let's show the inconsistencies, or rather, the split, the division of Americans and their allies. And not only that, the repetitious words that they say from war to war. Let's see if, Lord willing, I can prove that point. Now, this right here is French President Emmanuel Macron. And he says right here, Macron says, Russia, China, not NATO allies, common enemies. Terrorism. He says that terrorism, let's see right here. Matter of fact, we're gonna let him speak for himself. Let's see if we can see this real quick. Let's start at the beginning. And they're gonna put it, I think, in caption.
L'OTAN est une organisation de défense collective. Contre quoi? Contre qui s'exerce-t-elle? Qui est notre ennemi commun? Quels sont nos sujets communs? Cette question mérite des clarifications. Et vous le voyez, c'est une question éminemment stratégique. Est-ce que, comme je l'entends parfois, notre ennemi aujourd'hui est la Russie? Est-ce que c'est la Chine? Est-ce la vocation de l'Alliance Atlantique de les désigner comme ennemis? Je ne le crois pas. Notre ennemi commun à tous au sein de l'Alliance, me semble-t-il, c'est le terrorisme qui a frappé chacun de nos pays.
He said that he don't believe that Russia and China are their enemies. They all have a common enemy, and that's terrorism. Now, I'm going to go out on a limb and say, you know, that's code word for America. Terrorize and go around, you know what I'm saying, with their democracy and their world police mentality. And it's prophesied that all these nations, these world leaders, these kings are going to turn against the whore. They're going to hate the whore. And France is supposed to be an ally to the U.S. The same ally that U.S. went and backdoored them on a deal for some subs that France had already had sold. All they had to do was put ink to paper. But at the last moment, guess who swooped in and stole the deal? You guessed it, America. And they supposed to be friends. Now, it goes without saying, France didn't like that. They didn't take too kindly to that. And then turn right around next week, and it's just for a lack of better words, not actually next week, but turn around and a few weeks later, guess what? You need France come on board with you to pump up this propaganda against Russia. And it ain't working out so well for the U.S. Anyway, let's read right here. And Salakia for my reading, you know, I'm not the best at reading, and there's no shame in my game. It is what it is. I was raised in Babylon, so, you know. And it reads, French President Emmanuel Macron, whatever his name is, has said that he stands by comments he made 3 weeks ago. There you go. When he described NATO as brain dead. The Northern Atlantic Treaty Organization, formed in 1958, I believe. Yes, if I'm not mistaken. And he defends his push for dialogue with Russia. That's going against the grain when it comes to America. Oh, America, all you hear is troops are popping. Putin is over there building up troops. You understand? An attack on Ukraine is imminent. They blowing the horns. They on the top. They sounding the horn. What's that scripture in Amos? Let's see. Let me pull this real quick. Let me pull this up. I'm going to another source of information. I'm using my other phone, so it's not going to pull up on the screen. But let me go real quick. It's the book of Amos. I think it's the 3rd chapter, if I'm not mistaken. And it says right here, listen to this here. Because America is blowing the horn. It's blowing the trumpet. You know? And it reads, it says, surely, no, it's like it says, shall a trumpet be blown in the city and the people not be afraid? Should there be evil in the city and the Lord Yahweh had not done it? Huh? I'm going to just go on to verse 7. It reads, surely the Lord Yahweh thy power will do nothing but revealeth his secrets unto his servants, the prophets. But, you know, that proverbial horn that's being blown by the U.S., you know, and its allies are not getting on board, you know. So America's is first and foremost going to get Americans on board with what they're trying to do, you know. First and foremost. You know, I'm going to play a few more clips of other world leaders as well, you know what I'm saying, showing the dissension or the breaking off or the inconsistency or they not on the same page, so to speak, dialogue that's going on. And listen to the U.S. officials, especially mainstream news outlets, how they word things and whatnot. You know, you play close attention, as they say in the world, the devil's in the details. And that's just for lack of better words. Anyway, and it reads, he defends his push for dialogue with the U.S., with Russia. In a November 7th interview with the Economics magazine, Macron deplored a lack of strategy cooperation among NATO members and pointed to what he saw as a warning commitment to the Western military alliance by the U.S. The assessment drew sharp criticism from allies, with NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg warning against undermining the transatlantic alliance. Quote, it totally stands by raising these ambiguities because I believe it was irresponsible of us to keep talking about financial and technical matters given the stakes we currently face, Macron said after talks with Stoltenberg in Paris on November 28. It says the meeting took place before NATO leaders met outside London next week for its 70th anniversary amid persistent tensions between Russia and the West over issues including the Ukrainian and Syrian conflict and Moscow meddling into other countries' elections or meddling, Anyway, NATO has also raised concern regarding implications of China's increased presence and activities in the North Atlantic area. Like a wake-up call was necessary, huh? A wake-up call was necessary. I'm glad it was delivered. And I'm glad everyone now thinks we should rather think about our strategic goals, Macron told a joint news conference with Stoltenberg. Is our enemy today Russia, as I sometimes hear? And these are questions that the French president is posing to the Secretary General of NATO. And it reads, now Russia provides upwards of 80 to 90% of the natural resources over there in Europe, in China. So quite frankly, you got a conflict of interest there. You know, talking about the U.S. won't them the French to bag them in an endeavor to try to bring Ukraine into the NATO alliance. But then look here, but now that's going against what was done 30 some odd years prior when they brung down the USSR, former Soviet Union. And these world leaders know this. It's just the people, the public by and large, they don't know nothing. Because they keep coming up with a new Macy's store, you know, come up with a new fragrance for the women, you know. They had them commercials where they be running a man out there racing a horse, and they come up with this new fragrance and new cologne and whatnot. You dig what I'm saying? America's indulged in ice cream and cake fantasies over here. Grown children being managed by a tyrannical dictatorship of a government, being ruled by a secret council. And these people over here can care less. But guess what? It's going to affect each and every last American citizen. Before it's all said and done, this is going to affect each and every last one of you nonchalant so-called blacks, Latinos, while you so-called blacks and Latinos hating on one another. Still got that proverbial hate when you split up, you know, northern nation and southern nation. That's another thing, you know, you don't come on board with what the Lord got set up, you know, then you fall into that 2/3 category. You so-called blacks, you so-called Latinos, you so-called Native Americans. Still got that proverbial hate for one another. But guess what? While you preparing to celebrate Mardi Gras and Easter, the little fluffy bunny that lay eggs, madness, you know. Memorial Day, and I don't know, you know what I'm saying? I've been far since removed from that foolishness. So, you know, I'm just throwing out, you know, these seasonal so-called holidays, you understand? But the point is that our people are, and when I say our people, you so-called blacks, Latinos, Native Americans, you know, 2/3 of the nation of Israel, you're caught up in traditions, you're caught up in pageantry, you know, you're caught up in smoke and mirrors, you understand? You're just caught up in everyday enchantments. But what's truly happening is backdoor deals are crumbling 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years ago. They're crumbling right now. They're crumbling right now in the present day. And this was all prophesied. So you can sit back and play like, you know, none of this matter. You're not concerned with it. The Lord's got your back. And we're going to see just how far that gets you. Anyway, let's read on. Macron, and this is a quote right here, says, as our enemy today, Russia, as I sometime hear. Is it China? Is it the goal of NATO to designate them as enemies? Huh? Is it the goal of NATO to designate them as enemies? Now, it sounds as though Macron is talking to other NATO members, you know what I'm saying, that are not, you know, fully sold on this thing to back the U.S. against Russia and China. Because, see, like I say, these folks have to live over there with the gas and oil providers, which are Russia for the most part. And here you have this foreign entity over here, the U.S., that has turned into a consuming nation. You know, go back to the inception of this country. They was able to sell the whole world goods and supplies and whatnot. But you closed down paper mills in the 90s and these Martin Thiokol companies and whatnot, and shut down NASA and whatnot. You know, everything you go in the dollar store and buy and Walmart buy, it's all made in China. So you're no longer the sweatshop of the world. You done made your money. Now everybody else is waxing fat off of you, America, especially China. So these other countries is not listening to America like per se. They can see the writing on the wall, but not these slouchy ass, slothful ass Americans. They can't. I don't believe so. Our common enemy today is terrorism, which has hit each of our countries, he added. And like I say, I really want to believe that that's code word for America. I mean, don't get me wrong. They're gonna still play by the playbook to until it just done ran all the way out and they all got exposed their hand. But that's double talk. I believe that's double talk. Me personally, I believe that's double talk. But that's just me. It says Stoltenberg said that in uncertain times we need strong multilateral institutions like NATO. We need to stick together, basically what he's saying, And I ain't nobody but the U.S., the West talking. He also praised France's role in fighting Islamic terrorism in the Sahel and the Sahel region, which saw the death of 13 French soldiers in Mali this week. Macron also took aim at NATO member Turkey, saying its military offensive against Kurdish militia fighters in northern Syria endangers the action of the coalition against the Islamic State extremist group, a coalition of which NATO is a member. Turkish Foreign Minister Mevlut, I can't pronounce that name, discussed the French leader's criticism and accused him of being a sponsor of terrorism. Listen to this. Now they throwing insults around. They cracking. Let's get it real quick. Let's go to Matthew real quick. They cracking. They cracking at the seams. Yeah. They throwing insults around at one another, and these you may hear these verses a whole lot, here in the coming days. You may hear this is right here. This is Matthew 24, and I'm gonna start at verse 3, and it says, "As he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto him privately, saying, 'Tell us,'" and he talking to the Lord, to the Savior, Yahushua, "when shall these things be? And what shall be the sign of thy coming and of the end of the world?" And Hamashiach answered and said unto them, "Take heed that no man deceive you, for many shall come in my name, saying, I am Hamashiach, and shall deceive many." Okay. And shall deceive many. "And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet." Here we are, right here, verse 7. "For nation shall rise against nation." And when you go into that word nation, it goes back to race, ultimately. Do your research and you'll see. So you're going to have race wars, and French and Turkish people. I would say that the Turkish people, they are a sect of the so-called Jewish people. When you go back into their history, they all go back to what you call the Khazarians, which were really Japhetic people. You understand? But Esau stole everybody's identity, and the Khazarians they split up. Some practice Islam, and the other sect, they practice Judaism. So this is where you get the Jewish people and the Turkish. So, but anyway, it says, "For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilence and earthquakes in diverse places. And all these shall be the beginning of sorrow." So that's slanging insults around right now. That's slanging insults around right now. Let's read. He said, Turkish foreign minister dismissed the French leader's criticism and accused him of being a sponsor of terrorism. Macron angered Ankara last month by hosting an official from the Kurdish-led Syrian Democracy Force, or SDF, on Russia. Macron also said that Paris had absolutely not accepted a proposal from Moscow to impose a moratorium on missile deployment in Europe, as suggested in leaks in the German press earlier this week. We consider that as a base for discussion. We should just brush it off, he said, adding that this is the security of Europe we are talking about. See that? Ultimately, you're going to bring Germany into this. All of these, you know what I'm saying, all of these. And Germany was where they staked that line where they had the Berlin Wall put. That separated east to west. And since that wall has come down, I think, 4 or 5, I want to say 4, 3 to 4 former Soviet nations have defected to NATO. So, you know, hey, anyway, let me go to some news clips real quick. Back at you. Real quick, I want you to listen to this discussion between this MSNBC correspondent, I think it's MSNBC, is it? And a former, well, you finna see. But listen to this exchange, and we're gonna play something. As a matter of fact, no, let's not get that one first. Let's not get that one first. Let's get this one, Nightly News full broadcast. I think this was yesterday.
Tonight, an all-out diplomatic push to avoid war. French President Emmanuel.
Check this out.
After President Biden's 1 hour set Russia on a march to war with Ukraine,
Check this out.
Tonight, President Biden warns Vladimir Putin directly not to invade Ukraine. The two in a high-stakes hour-long phone call today. What the president threatened to do if Russia moved in, as the State Department orders most of its embassy staff in Ukraine and members of the National Guard to get out now.
a Russian invasion could start at any time.
Standoff at the bridge. Police move in on the truckers' block for workers.
This is NBC Nightly News with Jose Diaz-Balart.
Good evening. If Vladimir Putin has set Russia on a march to war with Ukraine, the pace seemingly quickened today. The U.S. is now warning an invasion could come at any moment. The State Department has ordered most...
Mind you, I'm just trying to show you the inconsistency in the U.S. and what it's pushing, and the main characters, the main players in this, Russia, Ukraine. I mean, minus NATO, because NATO is obviously on board with what the U.S. is, talking about. But listen to what the Ukrainian president has to say. You would think that he would be reading from the same playbook, but there's going to be some ambiguity there. Just like it said, the French president said it was ambiguities. Let's go.
of its embassy personnel to get out now. And officials today said the time for Americans to flee the country isn't now. It's already passed. That is the backdrop against which Presidents Biden and Putin spoke on the phone today for over an hour. Biden warned that there will be severe consequences if Russia moves in. Putin made demands the U.S. has already said it will never meet. Josh Lederman starts us off tonight from the White House.
Tonight, after President Biden's 1 hour phone call with Vladimir Putin, the White House says a Russian war in Ukraine is still a distinct possibility. The White House saying the midday exchange from Camp David resulted in no fundamental change, insisting Putin may still invade at any moment, and threatening swift and severe costs if he does. The Kremlin accusing the U.S. of whipping up unprecedented hysteria and repeating Russia's list of demands, such as barring Ukraine from NATO, a non-starter for the U.S. Today, most of the U.S. embassy in Kyiv shutting down, U.S. diplomats evacuating. NBC's Erin McLaughlin outside the embassy compound.
All but a small core group of American staffers will evacuate the country. The U.S. warning any Americans planning to stay behind, they cannot get them out, and they cannot guarantee their safety.
The Pentagon ordering 160 Florida National Guard trainers out of Ukraine tonight. But Ukraine's President Zelensky urging his citizens to stay calm,
openly disagreeing with the U.S. that an invasion is imminent.
The truth that we have different information. And now the best friend for enemies, that is panic in our country.
Tonight,
the best friend for them is panic. And who's ensuing? He said that they got different information. Let's listen to him one more time, real quick.
National Guard trainers out of Ukraine tonight. But Ukraine's President Zelensky urging his citizens to stay calm, openly disagreeing with the U.S. that an invasion is imminent.
The truth that we have different information. And now the best friend for enemies, that is panic in our country.
Tonight,
It is. I mean, hey, the best friend for enemies is panic. You understand? They dealing with different information. You know, they ain't working on the same playbook, and these things are being put out in the public domain. Now, I'm gonna play another video here. Just a second. Now, I'm gonna play another video. Check this out, real quick. Now, I want you to check this out right here. Now, this is what this is. Is this a day? All right, this is a day later. Listen to this here. Now, you heard Ukraine openly disagreed with America. You understand? You seen the remarks of French President Macron saying that, you know, hey, China and Russia are not our enemies. You know, to my terrorism is our enemy. You dig what I'm saying? So who's pushing the narrative about China and Russia, or rather Russia, being on an imminent, being on the verge of just rushing the Ukrainians? Which that may be the case. You understand? You know, I'm not none of these world leaders, so, you know, let's not get it construed. That may very well be the case. But now, I'm trying to point out, Lord willing, is the inconsistencies between these world leaders. They're not on the same playbook. These little inconsistencies, these little disagreements that they're having, it's going right over the heads of the people, by and large. You can be out in the everyday world, walking around and whatnot. Ain't no one speaking about these things. Leads you to believe that there's different, that's an agenda, which is always an agenda that's being acted out here, you know. But I want you to listen to this here now. How they gumming it up, how they jimming it up, and this is the U.S. speaking. I want you to listen to this real quick.
Why did those talks in Berlin between Russia and Ukrainian negotiators fail? Is war inevitable? With us now, former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for the Middle East and ABC defense analyst, Mick Mulroy. Mick, thank you so much for being with us and sharing your expertise. I want to start with these sticking points in negotiations. What is the biggest problem? Does Russia honestly want to engage?
You see how they pose that? Does Russia honestly want to engage? Because guess what? These not so big news outlet, or rather these alternative news outlets, they're bringing truth. They're going and doing research. They're pulling out details and whatnot. They're posting them on their channels and whatnot. You know, from Abu to farming, off the grid farming, and so forth and so on. You know what I'm saying? Wong, WOIN, so forth and so, you know, and you know, these people, these other outlets that are not as popular, you know, as obviously as MSNBC or Fox or any of these mainstream news outlets. They are hearing the chattering. These big wheels, these big voices here, they're hearing that. And this is their way of addressing it. Just in case any of their listeners are straying off into these proverbial chat rooms and are being convinced otherwise of the propaganda that the U.S. is speaking. Listen to this. This is all this is. This is strategic craftiness at its best.
With these sticking points in negotiations, what is the biggest problem? Does Russia honestly want to engage?
Well, Deidre, I think that's the actual question. Whether these talks are simply to allow Russia to get into the military position to be able to do a full-scale invasion. And it looks like that is where they're heading. Terry mentioned in his report, they have troops in Belarus. They have troops on the direct border And now they are flooding the Black Sea and the Sea of Azov with a naval armada that's both capable of blockading the ports and capable of putting a substantial assault force, their naval infantry, what we call our Marine Corps, into another front. So essentially enveloping the Ukraine with military capacity. So I do not know if diplomacy has a chance to diffuse the situation. I think we should all be hoping that's the case. But it looks now that Russia is intending to do an invasion. Whether it's a full-scale or a limited, we do not know. But the buildup certainly indicates that that is likely.
So in the past few weeks, Ukrainian leaders have really been downplaying this buildup almost.
There we are. That's the point. In the past few weeks, Ukrainian leaders have really been downplaying what the U.S. is saying. Now, this is the day's news or the day after news. You understand? Goes to show you that the big snake, the head of the snake, pays attention to all the little tentacles. You understand? Or rather, the octopus head, it pays attention to all the little tentacles that have spawned from its inception. They paying attention to all of this. You understand? So they're trying to spin the narrative and can stay in control of the narrative real quick. And then you notice how Russia is, it seems as though it's imminent. Russia gonna this, Russia gonna do that. But the onus is never on the U.S. Peep that out. The onus, this place has been in operation for over 245 years. And of its 245 years, it has been at war for 222 years. And not once have the United States owned up to its doing in the war. It was always justified to go and cause bloodshed, mayhem, and create millions upon millions of refugees to be flooded into the neighboring countries of where they invaded. And they never acknowledged their hand in it. It was always democracy, freeing the people and this and that and the third, freeing these people from a tyrannical tyrant or dictator, while at the same time creating refugees upwards of the millions, crippling neighboring states' economies over, wherever they go, bring their war machine, keeping you to a blind eye to that. And then the men and women that go fight these wars come back with psychological, if not physical abnormalities, psychological abnormalities, and then they don't even want to take care of them. Like I said, this playbook that the U.S. been using, it done played out. The Lord got a cake baked for them. But listen to this here, because Ukraine now is openly disagreeing with the U.S. And watch how they play this. Just check this out.
But the buildup certainly indicates that that is likely.
So in the past few weeks, Ukrainian leaders have really been downplaying this buildup, almost saying that the U.S. has been stoking more tension than helping. What do you make of that point of view?
Ooh, that's laughable. That is laughable. You see, that's laughable. The U.S. been stoking up more than tensions than they helping. What you make of that? You know what I'm saying? What would make them say something like that? You dig what I'm saying? This a slick, split tongue talking, double faced devil. You understand? These Edomites, these so-called white folks over here in America, are the most sleaziest, knuckle dragging cave maggots that you probably will ever encounter in all your existence. And they'll sit there with a straight face. That's why the scripture says you never trust your enemy. Ecclesiastes 12:10, you never trust this devil. He'll backdoor his mama. You never trust this devil. One more time. I'm going to get off this tangent. I'm going to get off of it. One more time.
Use the situation. I think we should all be hoping that's the case. But it looks now that Russia is intending to do an invasion. Whether it's a full-scale or a limited, we do not know. But the buildup certainly indicates that that is likely.
So in the past few weeks, Ukrainian leaders have really been downplaying this buildup, almost saying that the U.S. has been stoking more tension than helping. What do you make of that point of view?
Well, I think that may have been some wishful thinking. They didn't want to create a scenario where people were flooding out of the Ukraine, potentially damaging their economy. But now I think it's very clear that they understand the dire circumstances they are in. They have instigated, under the Vienna documents, a request that Russia explain their military activities, and Russia, under those agreements, has 48 hours. I think it's very clear that the Ukraine understands that this is likely to happen, and that now they are full in preparation for how to oppose an invasion. And in my estimation, they are looking how will they oppose any occupation, which would be a massive insurgency which could last for years, if not decades.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we saw activity in 2014, which many in that country are still living with. What do we know about the call this morning among Western?
Well, that was wishful thinking. That's all that was. I'm quite sure they've come to their senses now. That's basically what he just said. The onus is on Ukraine. You see? You Ukrainians, you're out of your wits. You come to your senses yet? Because you see Russia at your you see them right there at your border. Hundreds of thousands of them just piling up. They bringing war machines, tanks, and troops and whatnot. It was just a bit of wishful thinking. They're coming to their senses. You know what I'm saying? Disregard that. Don't pay that no mind. That was just a slip of the tongue. They was out of their mind. They didn't know what they was talking. But anyway, one more clip. Get up out of there. I've been going for a minute here.
President Biden told Ukraine's president that the United States and
wind up to the present day, Slovakia. Listen to this.
its allies would respond, quote, swiftly and decisively to a new Russian invasion into the country. Diplomatic efforts to defuse the crisis are ongoing, but the U.S. warns an attack is expected and soon. This weekend, some airliners began suspending flights in Ukrainian airspace. Today, a chartered jetliner carrying more than U.S. troops from the 82nd Airborne Division arrived in Poland to bolster NATO's presence there. CBS's Christina Ruffini has been following this story for us and is at the White House tonight with the latest developments. Good evening, Christina.
Good evening, Jerika. Presidents Biden and Zelensky spoke for about an hour by phone today, and both men agreed for the need for continued diplomacy with Russia. But tonight, CBS News has learned the Biden administration is preparing to pull all U.S. personnel out of Kyiv in the next 24 to 48 hours.
We have seen over the course of the past 10 days dramatic acceleration in the buildup of Russian forces.
With almost all the forces it would need poised on Ukraine's borders, National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said today a Russian invasion could happen at any time.
The diplomacy is still open and available, but if Russia chooses to move, we're prepared to respond.
The U.S. has threatened unprecedented economic and political consequences. But so far, that threat hasn't stopped Moscow's massive military buildup.
Things are sort of building now to some sort of crescendo opportunity for Mr. Putin.
Saturday's phone call between Presidents Biden and Putin produced no major breakthroughs. The State Department has told all Americans in Ukraine to leave the country immediately. But the streets of Ukraine's capital are calm, and President Volodymyr Zelensky says the biggest threat to his country is panic. CBS's Imtiaz Tayyab is there.
Here in the capital, Kyiv, life is carrying on pretty much as normal, with most Ukrainians believing it's the Kremlin who wants them to live in fear, something they refuse to do.
But the U.S. says...
Whatever. Like they said, the Ukrainian president said that their biggest deal is panic. You dig what I'm saying? Fear, But now, we know that that the president of Ukraine is not on the same page as the NATO and the West, But of course, MSNBC, ABC correspondent gonna say some off the wall shit like, it's the Kremlin. They're gonna be pointing fingers. All this is a pointing finger deal. But anyway, you see how those people was just walking around, nighttime, like it ain't even nothing going on, ain't nothing happening. You dig what I'm saying? That kind of gives me that takes me back to the first Gulf War, real quick. We're gonna hurry and get on up out of here. It's been going on 44 minutes. The day in history, March 19, 2001, I believe. No, 3, Slovakia. War in Iraq begins. It says on March 19, 2003, the United States, along with coalition forces primarily from United Kingdom, initiates war on Baghdad just after explosions began to rock Baghdad, Iraq capital. U.S. President George W. Bush announced in a televised address, "At this hour, America and coalition forces are in the early stages of military operation to disarm Iraq, to free its people." See, listen to this shit. It's like it. "And to defend the world from grave danger." President Bush and his advisors built much of their case for war on the idea that Iraq, under the dictator Saddam Hussein, possessed or was in the process of building weapons of mass destruction. Turn off ad. No, I don't want to see that. It says hostile. Let's see. And let's see. Though Saddam Hussein had declared in early March 2003 that it is without doubt that the faithful will be victorious against aggression, he went into hiding soon after the American invasion, speaking to his people only through an occasional audio tape. Coalition forces were able to topple his regime, capture Iraq major cities in just 3 weeks. Actually, I wanted to see what it looked like the day before. Because, see, that picture that you just seen, them walking in them shops and coffee shops and whatnot there, in Ukraine, that was basically the scene that it was the day before they attacked Iraq. They was out at coffee shops and whatnot. It looked like a day in the French quarters of New Orleans, just for lack of better words. But I'm going to go ahead and pull up out of that. Let me get up out of that. But basically, we're going, this is the same playbook. I'm going to pull a scripture real quick. Let me go to Psalms, and I'm going to close out with this. Because ultimately, this devil, the elites of them, rather, and their little minions, their little sock puppets, these world leaders, they're going to get caught up in their own snares, their own traps that they have laid for the unexpected, the unawares. You so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, unbeknownst, the Most High going to set the trap that they set for you, they setting it for themselves. They're being set up. They're going to get caught up in themselves. This is Psalms 35, and I'm going to read from the top. It says, "Plead my cause, O Lord Yahweh, with them that strive with me. Fight against them that fight against me. Take hold of shield and buckler, and stand up for my help, for mine help. Draw out also the spear, and stop the way against them that persecute me. Say unto my soul, I am thy salvation." For it says, "Let them be confounded and put to shame that seek after my soul. Let them be turned back and brought to confusion that devise my hurt." It says, "Let them," listen to this, "be as chaff before the wind, and let the angel of the Lord Yahweh chase them." It says, "Let their way be dark and slippery, and let the angel of the Lord Yahweh persecute them. For without cause have they hid from me their net in a pit, which without cause they have digged for my soul. Let destruction come upon him at unawares, and let his net that he had hid catch himself, and to that very destruction let him fall. And my soul shall be joyful in the Lord Yahweh. It shall rejoice in his salvation." Listen to it says right here, I'm gonna start back at 6. It says, "Let their way be dark and slippery, and let the angel of the Lord persecute them. For without cause have they hid from me their net in a pit, without cause they have digged for my soul. Let destruction come upon him at unawares, huh? It's going to happen to them suddenly. These slick ass devils in high places, and it's going all the way back to the shadow governments as well. You know what I'm talking about? Not just these sock puppets that you see, Macron and Biden and Jinping and you know, and the Turkish prime minister and the secretary of NATO. Not just the sock puppets, but also the ones who have given them the playbook for the nets. Let them be caught unawares. You understand? This is what's going to happen to these people. You know what I'm saying? It says, let destruction come upon him at unawares, and let his net that he had hid catch himself, and to that very destruction let him fall. Lord willing, this has been edifying. I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to the Most High Yahweh, by Hashem Yahweh Shai. Double honors to the Apostle Elders of Great Millstone. Shalom.